Hello, I'm Jane Lewis, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Friday, the 21st of November. After a week of international glory, how good does that sound? We are back to the bread and butter of the Scottish Premiership.
Could be, it is. It's Stuart Armstrong.
And part of the second goal. And it's Landry Kabori.
Aberdeen host league leaders Hearts on Sunday in arguably the standout game of the weekend. And before that, there's some tantalising games on Saturday afternoon. Overperforming Falkirk travel to Tannadice to face Dundee United. And on Saturday night, another potential cracker as St Mirren host Celtic.
Moira! Dyson Moira makes it 3 for Celtic.
Goal, St Mirren! They're back ahead! I think that's Miguel Freckleton, the defender, is it?
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Moira Gordon is with us, Scottish football writer. So too Cillian Sheridan, striker of 1,000 clubs. That's a bit harsh, Cillian. I didn't write that, I promise you. It's been a good week, guys, hasn't it? Moira, have you recovered from Tuesday night yet?
The voice is just about recovering, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not sure about the heart. I think that might take a bit longer.
And the playoff awaits for Republic of Ireland as well, Cillian. Czech Republic and then Denmark or North Macedonia in the final. You'll squish Denmark. They're rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah, Scotland have proven that, so looking forward to it.
That might be a little bit harsh on Denmark as well, to be honest. Right, let's start with the action then, shall we? Let's start with Saturday afternoon. Falkirk, perhaps a surprise package this season. Moira, what are you thinking of how they might fare against Dundee United at Tannadice?
I think this is a game that's an exciting one to look at because it genuinely could go either way. I think we say that about so many fixtures in this league at the moment, but Dundee United on their day are a really good team and they've proved that against decent opposition at times, but they're just inconsistent. They can't produce it week in, week out, so you're never quite sure. It's a team that you wouldn't be wagering a huge sum of money on, or I wouldn't, each week, but no result would surprise you with them either. Falkirk, as you say, surprise package for a lot of people, but I don't think, I'm not being smug about this, but I don't think I was that surprised when they came in and started winning because they're just a team that have been winning season after season. They've got winning mentality. They've got a manager that encourages that bravery just to go out and play the way they feel comfortable, and I think that brings them rewards at times, especially in a league that is so tight. So I think it's going to be an exciting game, and again, it could go either way. It's got the potential to be interesting and exciting to watch, and both teams quite like playing a bit of football, so yeah, it'll be good to watch.
Cillian, have you been impressed with Falkirk? And Moira says there, obviously, they know how to win games, that their manager just seems to have everything spot on, down to a T. Is that why they've been so successful? Just that kind of continuity and consistency?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think they changed much personnel-wise. He's always kind of stuck with guys who have done a job with him over the past few seasons. And that was actually one of the things that I thought would hamper them this year. I thought they might have struggled in that kind of step up in levels, but kind of the more that they've been successful this year, the more kind of obvious it looks that they were going to be like that. I was one of the people that thought they'd struggle, and they've proven me wrong so far. And it's probably one of those games that could go and win or get a good result, and then you're kind of like, yeah, they probably do. That does go to form for them. But I think it'll be a tough game for them. Dundee United will have had their time over the break to kind of try and get things right. Jim Goodwin would have been eyeing that game up, knowing that there was the little break there where we had a little bit of extra time to work on things. So, like Moira said, it's a tough one to call. But personally, I kind of favour Dundee United. Despite everything I've just said about Falkirk, I think Dundee United might just shade it.
Okay, let's move on. Rangers at home to Livingston. These are the kind of games, I guess, Moira, that are going to be a pretty decent test of whether Rangers are turning over this new leaf and are starting to get it right.
especially after an international break. I think this is something that, Darren Roll came in and games you come thick and fast, and it's trying to actually imprint your style, get your message across to players and get them executing it. He inherits other players that weren't his picks, so it's sometimes hard to do that. But I think after an international break and against the team at the bottom of the league, if you're not coming out there and winning that game, then that's something that's going to, the fans are not going to be accepting of that, shall we say. So I think this is one it's going to be a tough test for them, because, again, I don't think there's any team in this league where you can just guarantee you're going to go out and beat them on their given day. Every team puts up a fight and gives, a decent account of themselves, and David Martindale, Livingston are never a gimme. So I don't think it'll be an easy one for them, but I think it's one that they have to be winning, and I think they probably will win, especially after an international break when you've had that time to impose your thoughts on the players and the team.
Well, over the break, they appointed a set-piece coach. Scott Fry arrived from Lincoln City, Cillian. It's caused a bit of chat, hasn't it? What are your views on a set-piece coach? Can they be a real valuable addition to a club? Is it almost like a necessary addition in this day and age?
Yeah, it's always been something that's you work on a lot. You always know there's opportunities. There is always a set piece coach kind of there anyway. It's usually one of the coaches will take on that responsibility. A lot of the time, goalkeeping coaches tend to be the set piece coaches. They'll do all the corners and free kicks. So I've never actually been at a club where there's been a specific designated set piece coach, like come in and that's their specific role. So it would be, the only thing that would be different is, when he's taking a session or he's taking the set pieces, that you probably take it a bit more serious, or you're like, okay, this is an actual, like, this is his only job here. Yeah. So you're kind of like, you're clued into it, and they're probably drumming it home a lot more than someone who's kind of just doing it along with their other roles. But it's yet to see if it's going to be a success or not.
Is it a sign, Moira, that maybe those within the club think that the players on the park should be doing more from set pieces? The Rangers so far, 4 goals from corners, 6 goals in total from set pieces. Are you maybe thinking that those at the club are thinking we should be getting more for our return from those kind of dangerous set plays?
I think most clubs will always look at set plays. It's it's like a penalty, almost, that you've got this advantage over the defending team. It is something that you should be hammering home a bit more often than Rangers certainly have there, especially if you're a team that are one of the top teams that are getting more set plays or more corners, more free kicks outside the box. That these are opportunities you should be taking more advantage of. So yeah, I would think the club will be thinking that, but I think any club will look at set plays, and if you're not looking at that as an opportunity to be getting goals, then there's something far wrong with you, So I think definitely Rangers will look as one of the top teams in the league to be pressing home that advantage from set plays in and around the box.
Right, let's move on. Hibs host Dundee. These are the kind of games, I guess, that Hibs need to be putting away consistently, I guess, to challenge at the top end of the table, Cillian.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a game probably both managers under, well, I'd say Stephen Presley's probably under a little bit more pressure than David Gray, but I think probably given how well they done last season, Hibs, after the shaky start, I think David Gray was probably given a lot more leeway. But I feel like they were probably expecting a bit more this season. They're still in third position in the table, which is good when you're looking at it like that. But they've probably had a lot of results that could have went. They were probably expecting a little bit more. But just like I said, they're in third position. They're still in a healthy place. I felt like they recruited well over the summer and really fancied them this year. But I think Hibs are probably the favourites for that. Dundee, I know what it's like to play there when things aren't going good and there's a bit of pressure on a manager, on the players and stuff. So But, I mean, not to contradict myself, but Dundee's good results have been when they've been games where it hasn't been expected. So it's potential to be a good game for a neutral.
Yeah. They have been at the receiving end of some heavy defeats this season. Have Dundee, Moira. What is not quite clicking for Dundee this season? Obviously, a new manager comes in, and I guess it takes a little bit of time to stamp his authority on things. But what do you see that's maybe not quite gelling at that club at the minute?
I think a lot of it is down to personnel. It's just about a new manager coming in, a very different type of manager in terms of his football and philosophies, as well as his personality compared to Tony Dock. They're very different characters. So a new manager coming in, he's brought in a few new players as well, just getting all that to gel, to get it to work the way he wants to. And as Cillian said, there have been games where they've played well. We saw them against Celtic, against Hearts. They were good for decent spells, before Hearts took control of the game. So there are moments in performances where you think, right, there's something there, but it's just not consistent enough yet. And I don't think enough of the players believe in it yet, actually. And I think it's going to be a tough one that we go to Easter Road, where they have been unbeaten for so long up until that Rangers result. And as Cillian said, there are performances there. They've just not quite. There's been little moments that have cost them, and it's been draws rather than victories. And I think they're not too far from turning those draws into wins. I think the performances are getting better. And I think the guys like Cillian and that beginning to hit a bit of form up front as well. He's going to be dangerous. And I think Dundee, they're going to have to be really organised and organised for the full 90 minutes, which they haven't always done. So that's going to be key, I think, at the weekend. But I think Hibs will be too strong, especially at home.
And Kilmarnock at home to Motherwell. Killie are on a horrendous run, aren't they, Cillian? What can Stuart Kettlewell do to try and turn this around? I mean, they're struggling at the minute, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. They just need a win from somewhere. But it's always easier said than done. There's nothing worse than when you're on a losing run and you can just never really see where a win's coming. And then every time you go into a game, the other team score, you go a goal down or something, and you're thinking, right, here we go again. Like it's the usual same old. And he's coming up against a Motherwell team that, like, despite all the praise they've been getting for how well they've played and attacking style and doing really well, they're probably a little bit struggling in terms of results-wise this season. They'll probably feel like they should. I feel like he'll look at these next round of fixtures and probably think if they play the same they did for the first round, that they'll be in a much healthier position. So that I would imagine of the two teams, Motherwell will be looking forward to this game a lot more than Kilmarnock will be.
Yeah, Motherwell playing some lovely stuff on the eye, Moira, but their manager, it's kind of been a constant theme. He's been bemoaning their kind of lack of finishing, which obviously is crucial in a game of football, to say the least, really, isn't it?
That's it. I mean, we've seen it, especially at this level. I think we've seen it over the years. Teams that have somebody who consistently can put the ball in the net will always do better. They might struggle midfield defensively. We've seen weaker teams finish high in the league because they've got goal scorers there. You never underestimate the value of a goal scorer, especially in this league. And I think when you're creating so many chances, that's brilliant. But there'll come games where you won't get that many chances. So when you're getting a number of them, you need to be putting away a higher percentage of them so you can understand his frustrations. But I go back to what I was saying earlier. This season, this league is so close that, you're not getting the luxury of being able to pass up, half a dozen chances in a game. That just doesn't happen without you being punished somewhere. And I think we look at perceptions of the league and which teams are doing badly and which teams are doing well. And then you look at the league table, and that's the bit that doesn't lie and that counts at the end of the season as well. And there really isn't that much between teams still. So it's still, this round of fixtures is going to be massive, I think, in it. And kind of shaking out who's the real relegation contenders and who's going to actually genuinely challenge for that top six. And I think this game's, you've got two teams that are in that area at the moment where they could go either way for them. It depends on how the next few fixtures are going, so they need to assert themselves.
OK, on to Saturday night, and St Mirren host Celtic in what is a dress rehearsal of the League Cup final. No new manager announced for Celtic as yet. It all seems to point to Wilfried Nancy arriving soon, but that delay, it can't be easy for the players, Cillian, not really knowing what's going on, unless, of course, they do, and it's just that we don't know that they know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's probably one of those where from the outside looking in, it looks as if Martin O'Neill has come in and all the players look to be enjoying it a lot more. That's what it looks like in games, so I can only imagine it's a similar thing in training. So the fact that he's stayed on, I don't think will really bother the players. I think as long as the mood around the place is good and training is upbeat and stuff, they'll be quite happy. At a club like Celtic, there's always going to be noise about something, so they'll probably just have to block all that out. If a new manager comes in, fair enough, you just go and it's someone else to impress. But like I'm saying, at a club like Celtic, you're impressing someone every day, every game, so there's not really a difference there. Probably all the euphoria around Scotland and all the talk around Scotland probably distracted a lot of people from actually what was going on there, which Celtic, I would say, were quite happy, where it gave them a little bit of time to feel like they're not really being rushed or as much pressure on disappointments being made. But it's I think it'll probably be Martin O'Neill's biggest test domestically so far. This game, everyone knows what St Mirren are like, and then add in the kind of, I don't know what the word, like that feeling around a Saturday night game. There's just something different around the atmosphere. So I'm looking forward to that game.
What changes has Martin O'Neill made to the Celtic team since his return, Moira? Because, Cillian touched upon it there. Certainly domestically, he seems to have had a little bit of an impact, doesn't he?
I think Martin O'Neill's biggest asset, and it's always been that, is getting players to believe in themselves. It's about getting them to enjoy themselves. It's about them going out there believing that they are maybe better players than they actually are or they've shown in the past. And I think that's a huge asset. His man management is phenomenal. You speak to any player that's played for him and they'll talk about that, how you can make them feel so special about themselves. And I think that was something that was missing in that team. There's tactical issues, and there's still, they still need an out-and-out striker. They still need areas of the team to be addressed. But I think the fact that you can make the best of what's available to them in terms of getting them to believe they're better than they are. And I think that's been shown. They've actually gone out there. Some of the pressure they were maybe beginning to show ahead of his arrival, and the latter stage of Brendan Rodgers, there wasn't that joy, as Cillian said, kind of in their play, and there wasn't that swagger that you expect to see from a Celtic team that have been so dominant for so long. So I think a lot of that is coming back into the play, and while they're not the intimidating force that they maybe were for the last few seasons, they're still slightly more to be worried about when you go and face them now than if you'd been facing them a month ago, I would say, just because of that mental side of the game as well.
As I mentioned, Cillian, it's a dress rehearsal for the League Cup final. Does that come into this game at all? Are the players kind of thinking, it'd be good to lay down a bit of a marker, from both sides, or is that just a completely irrelevant aspect at this time?
I don't think it really makes much of a difference. The only thing it could do is maybe give St Mirren a little bit of confidence. If they went in and got a good result, it then gives them a bit of more hope for the final. I'm sure they're going into the final thinking they can win it anyway. But I just feel like everyone knows Celtic are going to be the heavy favourites in that final. So if St Mirren can go and get a good result, even put in a good performance where they'll frustrate Celtic and create chances and stuff, it'll give them hope going into a final. So I think there's a lot more to lose for Celtic when it comes to that game. St Mirren could have a bad season domestically and win that cup, and it would be a really successful season, whereas Celtic kind of need to do both. So I'd say it gives St Mirren more of a chance to give them a little bit of confidence for the final.
Before we move on, just time to tell you about the Saturday show from 9 o'clock on Radio Scotland, where the guests will include Craig Burley, Pat Nevin and Greg Hempel. The World Cup might just get a mention or two, I would fancy. Right, let's move on to Sunday's big match at Pittodrie as Aberdeen host Hearts. Hearts, Moira, still unbeaten in the league. 2 draws in their last 3 games, though. We're not starting to see a wobble just yet, are we? Not time to panic, I would suggest.
I don't think any inside Tynecastle will be panicking, but at the same time, I don't think they were quite as... Maybe the hyperbole wasn't quite as extensive in the dressing room or around the corridors of Tynecastle as it was maybe in the stands. So, but I think it's something that will maybe concern them if they were to go a few more draws. They want the wins in there because the wins are what keep you that gap there. A couple of draws and suddenly everybody starts creeping back towards them and it's not seeming quite as emphatic. So, and I think the concern for them is the long-term injury to Benny Beningame as well. That's not coming at a great time, and they've got so many games coming thick and fast now. You don't want to be missing a key player like that. He's been phenomenal for them this season, along with Cammy Devlin, that midfield. You've seen it against even the Celtic midfield. They bossed it that day as well. So they're key players for them, and to have one of them missing, Magnuson and McEntee can come in and do a job there, but they're not as effective, I would say, as Benny Beningame. So having him out injured is going to be a key factor. Going to an Aberdeen team that are now beginning to find a bit of form. And at Pittodrie, where Hearts, this is a fixture where it always favours the home team. It has done for, 15 games in a row pretty much each way. The home team usually comes out on top. So this is going to be a key one for them to see where they can go there. If they can come away from Pittodrie with a win, I think you're looking at, some of that hype will start building again. So it's going to be key for them and for their own confidence just to go up there. And if they can come away with a draw or, as I say, a win, that would suddenly kickstart some of the hype again, I would think.
Very, very slight signs of recovery from an Aberdeen point of view. But is there still a little bit of pressure, do you think, on Jimmy Cillian?
Yeah, definitely. They're only, I think, 2 points above Dundee. I think it's been a really disappointing season for them. I don't think there's any... The fact we're saying that they've kind of been on a bit of a good run, it's only because they just... I think they've won a game and they drew a game, and that's kind of makes them look as if they've been on a good run. Like, that's in comparison to how they've actually been all season. It's they've really underperformed. I think there's a lot more pressure on him this season. Kind of with the start. I know near the end of the season he was under a little bit, and then the cup saved him. Yeah. Whereas I think he was probably under a lot of pressure to hit the ground running this season, and it hasn't happened. They're definitely not in a position where they'd expect to be. And it's a chance, like, we're coming to that stage of the first round of fixtures is all done, where managers can be like, right, now it's really this is where the time is where we're going to be judged. So he'll be looking at this now to, I think, probably kickstart their season, because it hasn't really started at all for them yet, I don't think.
Yeah, an intriguing game at Pittodrie, that is for sure. That's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Moira and Cillian, and thank you very much for listening this weekend. The football coverage starts this evening at 7:30 on the BBC Scotland channel, with championship coverage of Queen's Park against Ross County. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every day, so to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have your push notifications turned on in your phone. Enjoy your football this weekend, and remember to wrap up warm. It's going to be a cold one. Bye-bye from us all.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.